Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Puddles, and today we've got a new type of video based on the mistakes that I've made. I'm just gonna talk about a thing that happened in one of my campaigns that was a mistake, something that I learnt from, something that I will hopefully never do again, and hopefully you guys will learn with me. So this particular story is about Tief, one of my players that I had in one of my games. So I had a group of players. We played regularly together for about 6 months, but then scheduling conflicts sort of got in the way and we couldn't play as regularly anymore. So I changed the style of the game to a West Marches. For those that don't know, West Marches is you have a big player group and just whoever is available plays that weekend, whenever you have a session or however you want to do it. So the original players, they were all still in the campaign, but I introduced new players to join us, and we played more regular, and it was all good. We had Tief. Now, Tief was not always Tief. The player who was playing Tief started out as a ranger named Jefferson Starlight Starship, something like that. And he died. He was the second character in the campaign to die. So he created a warlock named Tief. And he was one of the players who was unavailable because he had real life commitments. So he, I think, had 3 or 4 sessions with Tief playing as that character. Now, while he was away, I introduced new characters. Some of the older characters played regularly. So these other characters are playing and being introduced to more things while he's away. So the players that played more regularly understand different concepts better than he would have, which we'll come to later on in the story. So in the West Marches campaign, I had a storyline based around a dwarf who lost his kingdom, lost his treasure, so he made a pact with Orcus to get it back. He had a big dungeon full of undead beasties and all sorts, and the players had gone to this dungeon a couple of times, run away a couple of times because it was a bit too scary, but now they're at the level that they could deal with this. They could go in, they could kill Morin, and they could rid the lands of the desecration that was spreading. Tief, fortunately, could make this session. So Tief was, I think, a level 5. Everyone else was between level 5 and level 8. So the thing with the West March campaign is you're going to have players that are at different levels. And that was fine. I wanted... So Morin's Tomb was the first main storyline from the West Marches campaign that was coming to a close. I wanted it to be epic. I wanted it to be an awesome set-piece battle. I wanted everyone to have their moment to shine, and I just wanted it to be really cool. So I thought of ways to do that. I built an interesting dungeon. I think the players had a lot of fun. The encounters were good and challenging. The final encounter with Morin was just hard enough that it was... players died, but they wouldn't have died if they rolled better. It was just on that line of being just dangerous enough that it feels scary, but not too dangerous to automatically TPK everyone who goes in there. I thought the dungeon ran perfectly. It was probably one of my favorite sessions I've ever run. But I wanted Morin to be more than just this sad dwarf who lost everything. I wanted his bond with Orcus to make a meaningful impact in the world. So I gave him the Wand of Orcus, which is a high-level artifact, and this is my mistake. So my players were level 5, and because a lot of them were playing maybe once every couple of months, they didn't think about curses. They didn't think about items that could potentially hurt them. They didn't understand the mechanics behind the identify spell. They didn't know the mechanics behind attuning with something enough for this kind of artifact. So the reason I'm realizing after this whole scenario was you've got to introduce your characters to these sorts of things. You can't just put something crazy like this in front of them and expect them to understand what they're dealing with. You need to have a cursed item that gives them, makes them cursed so that they can't sleep, or like you have to build it up to the level where they understand this. Now, the artifact that I had was not nearly as powerful, not nearly as dangerous, but it did have a death or save mechanic in it, which, again, I don't think it's the first time I'd ever used one, and I don't know if I would use one again unless it was. I definitely wouldn't use it in the same situation. So, what happened in the battle with Morim? The players fought. One player, Bob, he was a half-orc fighter. He died. He got killed by Morin. He failed a death save, and he died. But this was his story arc as well. He was the one who'd originally gone into the tomb. He had the magic sword that was made to slay this guy. He was supposed to die in this place. It felt narratively okay that he did it, and it was like a heroic death. It was the perfect death a player character could ever expect for their character. So he was the only one who died in the battle. But I alluded to in the fight was that everyone who died, their soul was going into this wand of Orcus, trying to hint to the players that this wand was dangerous. And I think that came across. I also had an NPC who was going to warn the players about it after the battle, but he also died. And I didn't have any backup to warn the players about this item. So along comes Tief, the only caster in the group that could really use this item in a way that would be meaningful, and she wanted it. She didn't have the identify spell. She didn't look to see if it was cursed. She had never dealt with a cursed item before, and had played like 3 sessions in the last 4 months or something like that. So this character attuned with the Wand of Orcus and died, failed her save, and automatically dead. And while the other players thought it was interesting, and that's the thing with save or die mechanics. It's fun for everybody else except for the person who dies. It just seems cheap, and it just doesn't seem fair. And that's what happened. And this player who has only played a couple of times in the last 4 months, character just died out of nowhere. Not knowing the reasons behind it, not knowing that these things can even happen, not knowing what the identify spell does or is. So I think it's the thing from this story that I take is to understand what you're putting in front of your players, especially homebrew stuff. Like, I homebrewed the crap out of that combat, but I'd had way more experience with combat, so I knew what the players could handle. I had never really homebrewed an artifact before. This was the first thing that I'd done like that. I'd never homebrewed something that could potentially kill someone with a save or die mechanic. And I shouldn't have been playing with those things at that level, just trying to make it epic. It's not supposed to be. It was epic without that. The fight itself was amazing. I didn't need this save or die mechanic in there after the fight to make it seem more exciting. It was just a really cheap way to kill a character. So I've learned that. And I'm just sharing this story. So I suppose the lesson is to be aware of what you're putting in front of the players, and if you're unsure, especially when it comes to player character death and taking agency away from the players, and informing the players really what they're getting themselves into. I think they're very important things that need to be done. But yeah, that's my story. I've made many mistakes in my D&D campaigns, so there'll be many more of these videos. But yeah, hope you enjoyed.